In this week's video, I'm going to be reviewing the Gen 3 wall connectors from Tesla. I'll tell you why I upgraded my perfectly good Gen 2 connectors and show you the huge difference in functionality between the Gen 2 wall connector and the Gen 3 wall connector. And by the end of this video, you'll know if the Tesla Gen 3 wall connector is the right wall connector for you. Let's get cracking. So why am I changing perfectly good wall connectors? Well, it's for three reasons. Firstly is my side of the drive where I park my car. My wall connector has a 2.5 meter cable. And the reason why I went for this is because I felt it was a lot neater looking than the 7.5 meter cable. And it worked really well. My first car was a Tesla Model S and it was perfect, nice and tidy. My next car was a Tesla Model 3 and it worked really well for that car as well. Now I drive a Tesla Model Y, although the charge port is in the same place, it's actually quite a bit higher than on the S and the 3, and this means that it creates a trip hazard. So people who are getting in and out of the car, the kids for instance, they're running around the car. I just don't like the way it's now dangling just off the floor. I think it's slightly unsafe. Secondly, these are dumb chargers, which in most cases, I'll talk more about this later, in most cases it's fine because you can just program the cars as to when they're going to charge instead. So at 12:30 a.m, which is when my cheap Octopus Go window starts, my car will start charging, and that means that I pay about £25 in electricity to drive about 1,000 miles if I'm charging at home. And that also means, compared to my big diesel X5, I pay the same amount in electricity to charge my car home charging a year than what I was paying in about 6 weeks with that car. So it is a lot cheaper in general to drive electric vehicles. However, our other EV, now we used to have an e-Golf if you watch my videos, a car which I loved, so much character, and out of every electric car I've ever driven, that car was the most interesting. A humble little e-Golf. My wife now needed a car with a much longer range because she was commuting to London and back, which is about a 200-mile round trip. So she's upgraded to a Q4 e-tron. Now, this is a lovely car. However, programming this car to charge in our off-peak window is proving very, very difficult. You can set it up to do it, and sometimes it will, sometimes it just does its own thing. And for a car that's at this price point, it's quite an expensive car, to not have a simple charging programmer in the car or on the app is inexcusable. It is shockingly bad. And as a result, even though it's been told to charge in that 4-hour window, quite often it charges for reasons unknown to us outside of that window. And we have solar at home and also a home storage battery. And we charge that battery in the off-peak window as well, so we can use electricity cheaply throughout the day when the sun's not shining, but quite often the e-tron has just emptied the battery. It's just not working out for us. One thing I like about Tesla chargers is they're quite keenly priced. These are £475, either directly from Tesla or from Amazon. Mine came directly from Tesla and they took a week to arrive. However, if you get them from Amazon, you can get them next day delivery with Amazon Prime. I'll put a link in the description which will take you exactly to these chargers. That link also helps support the channel, which is appreciated. My chargers were fitted by Cahill's, a company I use to fit my solar and also my home battery storage. If you're within 3 hours of Colchester, I highly recommend them. Lovely company, very easy to work with, and they've got fantastic reviews. Chargers are now fitted, so let's see what these can do compared to the Gen 2 chargers. As the Gen 3 wall connectors connect to the internet, you can receive updates. They also integrate into the Tesla app, and one feature I like is that you can see them in your garage here, along with a picture of your car, which I think is really impressive. The next feature which really works for me is in your car, in your Tesla, you can start charging at a certain time, but as I've perhaps mentioned, you can't stop. However, with the app, you can now set a charging window. So my car is now set to charge between 12:30 and the charger will stop charging at 4:30 a.m. And that 4-hour window is my off-peak charging window. And it charges at about 10% an hour the car will charge at that speed. Previously, if I put my car on and it had less than 40%, bearing in mind I charged at 80% daily, then it would charge beyond that cheap window, go into a more expensive tariff, about 3 or 4 times the cost, and it would also start eating into my home battery as well. I would historically do this manually, so if I hit the charger at 20% when I got home, I would just adjust the slider to 60%. It would charge to 60% overnight, and then I'd adjust it the next day back up to 80. So it wasn't a huge issue. You can also get apps that do this for you. One is ev.energy, which is a fantastic app, but you have to log on to that app with your Tesla credentials. And I think it's very secure. It's encrypted. But as we know with cybersecurity, it's all shits and giggles until someone giggles and shits. So I prefer to not use third-party apps with my car. The next thing I like is the added security. I've had chargers on my drive now for over 5 years, and I've never had anybody, well, to my knowledge, I guess, pull up onto my drive and start charging their car while I'm not there. Does it happen? I'm sure it does. I think it's a rare occurrence. But with the Gen 3 wall connectors, you can secure them in one of 3 ways. So like I've done, they won't charge in the day. They only charge in that off-peak window. Secondly, you can make them so they only charge Teslas if your household just has Teslas in. Or in my case, my charger, I could just link it to only charge Teslas. But more specifically, which is probably a feature that I really like the most, is I can set my charger, my wall connector, to only charge my car. Because it's a Tesla Gen 3 wall connector and I drive a Tesla, I can link that charger to that car and it won't charge any other car at all. The next thing I like is that the cables are thinner, so they're actually easier to use, easier to wind up. They're also lighter as well. They're just a lot better to handle. And the actual handle itself is smaller. So in conclusion, the Gen 3 wall connector is certainly a step up in technology than the Gen 2. I really like them. They charge at the same speed though, so you're not gonna get any faster speed from them. If I had a Gen 2, would I upgrade? Now, in my case, I had referral credits, so if you know somebody, if you've got a Tesla and you know somebody who wants one, you can give them your referral link, which will then give them a discount, and you gain points, and I use those points to get 2 free chargers. I'll put my link in the description if you're thinking about buying a Tesla, and you can do the same. Now, I had referral credits and I was able to sell my old chargers, my Gen 2 wall connectors. I was able to sell those, and selling those covered the cost of installing the new ones. So it's free for me to make this change. In addition to that, I'll make savings going forward, as I've mentioned, because I can specifically control the charging of these 2 cars within my off-peak window. Also, I buy my off-peak electricity at 9 pence per kilowatt hour, and if I've got an excess from my solar system, that is sold back to the energy company at 8 pence per kilowatt hour. However, if I didn't have a Tesla, I would probably look at something like a Zappi 2, because I think that's, when it comes to smart features, I think that's more advanced than the Tesla Wall Connector 3 and perhaps a little bit more usable. The setup on the Connector 3 wasn't that easy. The Gen 3 wall connectors do exactly what I expected them to do and what I wanted them to do, and I think I'll be using them for many years to come. If you haven't got a Tesla or you're interested in Tesla road trips, here's what it's like to do a really long trip in a Tesla and how the charging network works when you're out on the road. I think you'll really enjoy this video. Until next time, see you soon.